stories from the European Commission to come through. Our next speaker is the Chief Technology Officer at the Township of Langley, and he will be sharing stories about how his team is using data to improve operational efficiency. So please welcome to the stage, Steve Scheepmaker.
Fabulous. Thanks very much. So I want everyone to sort of picture themselves back in the year 2007. And as an IT practitioner, you've been asked to develop an IT strategy, some sort of technology roadmap, like a planning document. At year 5, if you would have reflected back upon what you had sort of cooked up in your strategy, chances are you would have missed the iPhone, the iPad, sort of the explosion of social media, and this sort of nebulous cloud thing that we're all talking about nowadays. And my point is that the velocity of change that we're experiencing with the rapid adoption of technology is impacting everyone, everywhere. And with that sort of consumerization of IT, there's this growing, this changing expectation around how we deliver government services. And we, as government practitioners, really need to start to think about how we're going to re-envision the delivery of those services. Tiffany from Code for America a couple talks ago mentioned the word dog fooding. And dog fooding is this concept that's used quite frequently in the software industry. And the notion is that software companies use their own products and services as a means to sort of test, validate, understand, and ultimately improve their product offering. And I'm going to skip forward a couple of slides here. Obviously, the notion of sitting down and eating a can of dog food is not the most appetizing thing. So inspired by my son here, I'd like to sort of reframe that a little bit and call it eating our own ice cream, because as we all know, open data is pretty sweet. And the idea being that as government practitioners, we need to start self-consuming our own products and services as a means to sort of reimagine what they might look like. And I'm going to provide 4 really quick, simple examples of how we've self-consumed our open data as a means to improve our product offerings and ultimately improve organizational efficiency. So the first example here is really simple. This took place a number of years ago now, but we used to have this hard copy directory that we used to have for sale at one of our front counters that basically, it was a business license directory. And as you can imagine, it's hard copy based, so it took lots of time to maintain. And really, by the time you printed it and you put it on the counter for sale, it was basically outdated. So we did as any IT practitioner would do, and we sort of auto-magically reached into that data set, and we pulled all the sort of the pertinent details out, and we made a nice machine-readable version that we made available to the public on our open data catalog. Now, what we realized fairly quickly was that there were a lot of staff that actually didn't have access to that line of business system and have access to this rich data set. So we realized that staff were really starting to self-consume that data set that we had put up on the open data catalog for their internal business processes. And it worked really, really well. But as I mentioned, this process saved us a ton of staff time. And this really got us thinking that, hey, staff time is expensive. It equals money, right? And a good way to sort of communicate the efficiency gained through the introduction of open data into a process is a really easy way for people to wrap their heads around the value. So as we moved forward and we were starting to evaluate other data sets, we started to reframe that conversation a little bit around potential savings that we could achieve. So, using past examples, we could start talking about, hey, well, when we did this for this department, we saved X amount of dollars every month worth of staff resources, and it was something that they really, like I said, really understood. Just like any other government entity, we have elections. And our last election was just last year, November 15th, 2014. Leading into that election, there was this growing expectation around us getting the results of the election out to our constituents much faster than we had in previous elections. And in addition to that, there was obviously a desire to have some nice graphical depictions of the results so that people could really easily understand who had been elected and who had not. We had also learned from previous elections that there's a lot of people out there who really like to get into the details, and they want to see the polling station data in great detail so they can understand how and why the election played out the way it did. So here's what we did. Polls closed. We electronically transmitted the polling station data to a central repository where it was aggregated. We then forked the data at that point, and one fork went off into the data aggregator. The other one actually we forked and pushed directly into a Socrata data set. Now, by doing that, we instantly made all that sort of detailed polling station level data available for people who wanted to consume it. They could just go to our data catalog, click on the data set, download that CSV as the election was actually happening and the polls were closing. Because it was also, because it was living within our Socrata portal, we used those native visualization tools to actually build some nice, easy to consume charts for people to sort of watch the results as they were occurring, right, powered directly off the platform. We then self-consumed those charts and actually embedded them directly on our website. And the whole process was worked very, very well for us, and took next to no effort to actually pull off when certainly the alternatives would have taken a lot more time and effort to pull off. The next example here revolves around cemeteries. We've got 3 municipal cemeteries in the Township of Langley. As you might expect, a service that's expected from us is a way for people to basically search for and find out where individuals are buried in those cemeteries. Lots of options available to achieve this, one of which obviously is exposing sort of a public-facing interface off that internal line of business system that's used to manage the housing on the cemetery. And make that available to the public, but as the guy that's ultimately responsible for our corporate security posture, directly exposing line of business systems isn't something I'm super comfortable with. So here's what we've done. We've normalized that data into a nice, clean data set on the Socrata platform. By nature of the way Socrata works, we all know that there's an API that's available for that data set. We've self-consumed that API, and it's built out a nice little pluggable HTML5 widget that we're now going to embed in our soon-to-be-released revamped corporate website a little later this fall. So again, self-consuming not only the API, but the data to provide the service to the public. The last example involves sports fields. Geographically, we're quite a large municipality, and we've got a lot of sports fields. We're just down the road from Seattle, so as you can imagine, we also get a lot of rain. And grass and rain don't mix, especially in a sports field scenario. And over the course of the winter, when those fields are being used quite actively for things like soccer, and we also get a lot of rain in the winter, the conditions change quite rapidly on those sports fields. Currently, we just maintain a static web page, and a member of the park staff actually goes in there and manipulates the conditions so that the sports groups, the soccer teams, etc., go to the website and they can determine whether their field's available that given day for their game. So much like the cemetery approach, we're building a data set. We're going to expose an API and build a nice little widget. We're going to use that widget on our own website. But our intent is to actually start to share that widget with some of those sports groups so that they can then embed the search and the reporting tool directly inside their websites, drastically expanding the reach of that data and making sure that it's super easy for them to get at. So a couple closing thoughts. I think we all are here, we agree that open data is super important from a transparency perspective, but I really do believe it's often overlooked as an internal tool that can be used to drive efficiency. Most of all, it really provides us an incredible tool, a platform, to start to reimagine how we can deliver government services and information to the public. And I'm kind of short on time, so I'm around certainly for the rest of today, so if you want to corner me for any questions, I'm available. But my name is Steve Scheepmaker, and I openly promote the mass consumption of ice cream. Thank you very much.